What if I told you that in just 2 minutes, America's closest allies might have rewritten the global trade map? That $2 trillion evaporated from the markets almost overnight. That Boeing, one of the largest symbols of American industrial power, just watched its $43 billion Ryanair deal spiral into chaos. Well, that's exactly what just happened. Canada and Europe aren't just pushing back, they're walking away. From Trump, from Washington, and from decades of US-led economic dominance. And the consequences? They're massive, and they've already started to shake the world. Before we dive into this global shockwave, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the next major headlines reshaping the global stage. Let's get into it. The $2 trillion earthquake. Let's start with the number that shook Wall Street, $2 trillion. That's how much value was wiped out in a matter of just 48 hours. Global investors panicked as confidence in US trade stability plunged. Stocks took a dive, the dollar wobbled, and tech companies with international supply chains suddenly looked vulnerable. Why? Because what just happened wasn't just a market correction, it was a full-blown reaction to a shift in the global order. Analysts called it a confidence crisis, while CEOs scrambled to assess damage and hedge their exposure. At the center of this financial tremor is a simple fact: America's closest allies no longer want to play by Washington's rules. And it's not just about tariffs or diplomacy, it's about long-term trust, reliability, and leadership. Or rather, the lack of it. The message from Canada and Europe? Enough is enough, and this time, they're putting their money where their mouth is. The Boeing bombshell. Now let's talk Boeing. The US aerospace titan has long stood as a symbol of American industrial might. Its deal with Ryanair, worth a staggering $43 billion, was supposed to be a major win. But today, that deal is hanging by a thread. Why? Because Europe, led by shifting winds in Brussels and rising tensions with Washington, is reconsidering its dependency on American manufacturing. There's growing discomfort with political instability in the US, not just in terms of foreign policy, but economic decisions too. And when Trump openly targeted European industries with tariffs and trade threats, it lit a fuse. Ryanair, like many European companies, is no longer sure it can count on the US as a stable partner. A $43 billion contract doesn't mean much when geopolitical uncertainty threatens every stage of production and delivery. If this deal collapses, it won't just be a blow to Boeing, it'll be a warning shot to every other US company with global contracts. The $120 billion end run around the US. While Washington was busy flexing muscles, Canada and Europe were quietly building an alternative. A $120 billion trade bypass, designed specifically to avoid US customs bottlenecks, is now in motion. This infrastructure, involving upgraded ports, rail lines, and customs agreements, connects Canada with European markets more directly than ever before. The goal? Cut the US out of the loop entirely, and make transatlantic trade faster, smoother, and more resilient to political disruption. No more relying on American ports or checkpoints. No more worrying about last-minute policy shifts or trade tantrums from the Oval Office. Canada and Europe are investing in each other, doubling down on trade agreements that prioritize predictability, long-term strategy, and mutual cooperation. It's not a slap in the face, it's a quiet exit, deliberate, strategic, and permanent. Why are allies abandoning the US? To understand the scale of what's happening, we have to ask, why are America's closest allies walking away? The answer isn't about one policy or one deal. It's about years of instability, protectionism, and political hostility. From the Paris Climate Agreement to NATO funding spats to global tariff wars, the Trump era created a long list of grievances. And while some thought Biden's presidency would reverse the damage, the scars are deeper than anyone imagined. Now, with the possibility of Trump returning in 2025, Europe and Canada aren't waiting to find out what happens next. They're hedging their bets. And their bets are moving away from the US dollar, US companies, and US-dominated trade routes. Europe's internal strategy shift. Behind closed doors, the European Union has been talking about something radical: strategic autonomy. That means Europe wants to stop depending on US military protection, US technology, and US-led supply chains. And we're starting to see that plan unfold. European defense budgets are rising. Domestic manufacturing incentives are being passed. And when trade deals are signed, they increasingly favor Asian or South American partners over the US. The Boeing deal was just the beginning. If Europe stops buying American aircraft, who's next? American software? American pharmaceuticals? The risk is very real, and US industries are beginning to panic. Canada's silent rebellion. Meanwhile, north of the border, Canada is no longer playing the quiet partner. Over the past year, Canada has strengthened its economic ties with Europe and the Asia-Pacific, while gradually reducing its trade dependence on the US. From expanding its natural gas exports to Europe, to striking new bilateral deals that skip over US review mechanisms, Canada is carving out its own path, one that's increasingly independent and assertive on the world stage. So what does all this mean? It means the global balance of trade is shifting, and it's happening fast. The $2 trillion market loss wasn't just panic, it was recognition that the world is changing. Investors are watching Boeing's uncertainty as a preview of what might happen to other American giants. If the US can't hold on to its allies, what does that say about its leadership? Even more alarming, countries like India, Brazil, and South Korea are now pursuing trade strategies that mirror Europe and Canada. Less US reliance, more regional autonomy. Trump's role in the collapse. Now, let's talk about the man in the middle of all this, Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, Trump's trade legacy is hard to ignore. From massive tariff wars to torn-up agreements, Trump's America First agenda always put pressure on US allies. For some, it was a wake-up call. For others, it was the last straw. Even now, as Trump remains a dominant political force, allies are planning their escape routes. They don't want to get caught in another trade war, another diplomatic feud, or another unstable policy storm. His influence, whether in or out of office, is still reshaping US foreign relations, and it's not doing American companies any favors. Washington's next move. With allies walking away, Boeing bleeding contracts, and markets in freefall, the big question is, what will Washington do now? Will the White House attempt to repair these broken alliances? Will Congress take action to incentivize foreign trade trust? Or will political divisions at home make that impossible? So far, we've heard very little beyond vague reassurances. But time is running out. Every day without a solid diplomatic response, more confidence bleeds out of global markets. The bigger picture, is US global leadership ending? Let's zoom out. This isn't just about one canceled deal or a drop in the stock market. This is about global leadership, and whether the United States can still claim it. When your closest allies start building workarounds to avoid you, it's more than a policy disagreement. It's a sign of fundamental mistrust. And once that kind of trust is gone, rebuilding it takes years, sometimes decades. The loss of Boeing's $43 billion deal is massive. But the deeper loss? It's symbolic. It shows the world that the US is no longer the automatic go-to partner. It's now just one option among many, and not always the most stable one. Where do we go from here? Here's what we know: Canada and Europe made their move. The $2 trillion market shock wasn't an overreaction, it was a message. The Boeing collapse. A symptom. The $120 billion bypass. A new trade map is being drawn. America's next chapter depends on whether it listens, adapts, and rebuilds those burned bridges. Or whether it doubles down on isolation and protectionism. The rest of the world isn't waiting. The age of unquestioned US trade dominance may be over. And what comes next is still being written. This isn't politics. It's the future of the global economy. And in the past 48 hours, we just witnessed a major turning point. If you're watching this, you're witnessing history unfold, realignments that will affect jobs, prices, travel, and investments for years to come. So here's the question for you: is the US ready to share the world stage, or will it cling to a fading past? If you found this breakdown valuable, drop a comment, smash that like button, and subscribe for more deep dives like this. We're just getting started.